As I mentioned when I walked through the agenda, each of the days of our symposium, we were rounding out the day with a spotlight on a different industry. And today we're able to bring you the Major League Baseball. And so when we think about our propensity to get people to subscribe and our consumer journey, so much of that and what we talk about is unique to our industry. What we found is that some of these things are actually quite similar in other industries. And that's why we're super excited today to have John Tierney with us. He is the Senior Director of Ticketing, Major League Baseball. And I'd like to introduce him and give him a warm welcome. Thank you, John, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Thanks for having me. And thanks to everyone at Mather Economics for inviting me. I think, it's an economics company, running the sessions here when we're ahead of schedule for a conference. I don't know how many of those that I've been into, but I guess that's part of the nature of the virtual conference. And, when I saw I was presenting last, usually that is the last session is before happy hour. So I know I'm not holding that up, especially with Aaron in Hawaii at 7 a.m. and people all over the place there. So hopefully I can keep everybody's attention for a little bit longer here. So yeah, I think you hit on, Nikki. You said, as I joined some of the presentations earlier today and seeing everything from yesterday, there's more similarities, in our industry than maybe I potentially realized. And, certainly things are much different, as you'll see, I'll talk about here. We're a little bit more events based. But there's, we're further behind, I think, probably, in a lot of initiatives, but there are a lot of similarities, and, hopefully there's a couple of interesting things here you can take away and compare. So I'm going to go through the ticket holder customer life cycle. And really, for us in baseball, there's 4 stages there. There's, acquiring the customer, onboarding them, engaging with them during, their term, their subscription, and then retaining them. So we'll start off with customer acquisition. I think, back in the day, when I first started working in baseball, and I'm sure that, there's some baseball fans on here, and, maybe you've, gone to games, had tickets, and maybe even had season tickets. But, there was a time when everything was communicated, via traditional phone calls or just, even emails. And going back further, when I first started in the industry, I had colleagues at the New Jersey Nets who they didn't even have an email. Their email came from New Jersey Nets group sales at AOL.com. So, we've certainly come a long way from there. And then the sophistication continues to get greater. And again, I think probably, a lot of the folks on this call are maybe a little bit further ahead of us, or have been doing this for a longer time. But, some of the things that we've shifted to over the past few years is just in general paid media. And I don't think that's necessarily new, but kind of the targeting that goes around it. The example here is a little bit small of the New York Mets, but just, we're just able to meet customers where they are, wherever that might be, and just targeting them based on, characteristics that they've shown, a propensity to be interested in us, versus just, kind of the spray and pray type method of advertising. And taking it a step further, we're talking about phone calls and emails, just the AI and sales automation piece. There's only a handful of our clubs that are really getting into this, but it's become an area that everyone's identified as an area for growth, in the near future. So you can see Nicole Johnson in the bottom right there. Nicole Johnson does not work for a team. She's not a real person. But, for example, if we know that, there's 100,000 people who bought merchandise, we'll just throw a team out there, the Indians. And I have to say the Cleveland professional baseball team at this point, because they'll be changing their name. But, we know that they've bought merchandise but never bought a ticket before. They might be a good candidate, they may not be, but the hit rate on those customers, might be a little bit lower than someone who has a ticket purchase history. So, what's an effective way to go through those 100,000 leads? It isn't necessarily to be emailing them individually or making those traditional phone calls. There just isn't enough, sales rep activity to be able to do that. So using this sales automation and having, a virtual sales assistant go and hit up all these people individually with a somewhat personalized message, but that's automated. And then, based on their level of engagement, then transferring them over, to a live sales rep to kind of, further the sale and close the sale. So again, this may not be something that's new to anybody on this call, but it's relatively new to the sports world, the baseball industry. And it's paying immediate dividends. It's been a real difference maker. The next thing I'll throw out there is just from a text messaging perspective. And again, this isn't anything necessarily new either. But, historically text messaging, from a rep to a prospective buyer, maybe that's done on their personal device. There isn't a ton of tracking, and there isn't, a ton of oversight into it. It's evolved to the point here where we can involve this text messaging, into be connected with the CRM system, be tracked. Again, it's small on this page, the green and gray text there, have campaigns that run through it, allow customers to text in. So, we're seeing, over 95% open rate on text messages versus, the email open rate varies quite a bit depending on the audience size and the campaign. But the text message has a much greater open rate, and also allowing people for an inbound text. Maybe not everybody wants to, get on the phone and talk to someone. They might be able to transact via email. So just, again, meeting the customers where they are. So those are just a couple of high level things, that we're doing there. And I'll get into a little bit more of, as I'm, noted here, some in-house metrics, events, customer email journeys, and omni-channel marketing that, again, just trying to find different creative ways to leverage, our brand, our live events, and lean into that and meet customers where they are and try and acquire them the best way possible. So talking about, using data and analytics, which I think, hopefully resonates with a lot of folks here. Our data science and analytics team developed a metric that we call a fan avidity or team avidity metric. It's based on all the fans' digital interactions with MLB and its clubs. So that can be anything from an email list they join, whether they use one of our apps and they've selected a favorite team, combining that with attending a game, utilizing MLB TV or our streaming product, or just generally spend on, again, tickets, but also merchandise and anything else they're interacting with the team. So, there isn't necessarily a ticket purchase history, which makes someone more likely to become a ticket holder for sure. But there's all these other signals that are saying, these fans are interested in the team, and, potentially we should be reaching out to them, whereas we may not have in the past. And this has become especially, key in the past 15 or so months because, last year we didn't have any fans buying tickets, or rather we didn't have any fans attending games. So those numbers were down quite a bit. So how can we be engaging with new customers and ramping up for, the time now as we're getting increased attendance across the board, with all our clubs to be able to fill those seats, versus starting from scratch. And so I mentioned, earlier leaning into, kind of what we're good at and what's special about us. Our events, obviously not just hosting games, people, love to come to baseball games, be outside in the summer, all that. But, all the other things that go along with it, the players, alumni, all the things that are our assets that are unique. How can we leverage them? And hosting an event, a sales event isn't new. I think it's just a combination of, a couple examples of events the Tigers did here, but just the lead sources, where they're getting this from the, people that purchase, not necessarily from the team, but from the secondary market, people they've surveyed, going back to the paid media targeting, people that look like the existing customers we have, and based on a bunch of other factors. And, when we get folks down to the ballpark, the close rate is just so much better. When they see and feel the energy of the event, whether it's a game or just interaction, with some of our alumni or players, we're always going to do better. I think that's probably true of any industry, but we have so many opportunities to do that. And, more and more teams have evolved into this model. Obviously that was paused quite a bit in the last year plus, but we've tried to do it from a virtual perspective too, to limited success, not as much as in person. So we're certainly looking forward to leveraging the in-person aspect and getting people, back to our ballparks and other venues where they can interact in person. So I mentioned, from an email marketing perspective, omni-channel marketing, we call them customer journeys, and I'm sure a lot of people here are familiar with them, either something they've implemented on their side, or they've just been a customer that's gotten it. And so again, I don't think this is necessarily something new. It's relatively new for us, but just trying to give a snapshot here of the combination of the customer journeys, combining email and all the other marketing assets. So there's a lot of different campaigns noted at the bottom here, but I have a generic one at the top. Just, we have games coming up. I think our ticket purchase history, across the board for all teams is pretty consistent. As we get closer to the game, more folks are interested in coming. So, engaging with them. Then if they don't, engage with that email, if they don't open it, click it, etc., they go down one path. If they do, they go down another, and combining those emails with different ads. Facebook is noted here, but it doesn't have to be Facebook. And just meeting people where they are. If they're engaging with our content, just giving them as many touch points as possible to put it in front of them and hopefully convert to a purchase. So just increasing our total marketing output, and it's proved to drive incremental sales. So I think we'll see a lot more of it. There's a bunch of examples at the bottom of the different product and fan behavior driven campaigns we have and can continue to do. But I think we're seeing a lot more of that from our teams. And that's something that we at the league are helping implement. But every team has a different strategy and way they go about it. So there's a bunch of different ways there that we're acquiring customers, right? And that's a lot of times is the hard part. Once we get them in the funnel, hopefully they'll stay with us. But there's a lot of steps to make sure that they do stay with us. So after we're acquiring the customers, we need to onboard them, and I'm sure everybody has their own different onboarding process. And I think there's a lot of things that I'll share that aren't necessarily different from anything you all might have be doing. But starting with just, especially in this day and age, the webinars and personalized videos. I think it's harder to do the in-person stuff. And I have a Braves example and a Royals example here. Tried to utilize as many teams as possible because I don't know who's a fan of what team out there. So trying to touch as many as possible. But just there's so much new information out there. There's so much information anyway when you become a ticket holder. As far as getting to the game, where you're going to park, how to get to your seats, where you can visit concession stands, how you can order on your phone for food. Digital ticketing is not necessarily mandatory, but we're getting close to that point where everyone is there's no really paper tickets out there. So for our new ticket holders, we want to make sure we're engaging with them, and so they have a good experience when they get there, knowing everything that they can beforehand. So whether it's these lunch and learn type webinars or just personalized videos, to allow clubs to better connect with their clients, and giving their sales reps an ability to create personalized introductions and custom content. And as I said before, with the text messages doing much better than emails, video-based emails and personalized emails certainly do better than regular emails. So to the extent that we can continue to personalize it and do the video-based stuff, we've seen good engagement there. Another example, just going back to again leveraging what we're good at with events. I think everybody probably shares the fact that their first year, their rookie, however you classify your rookie accounts, as less likely to renew. It's no different in baseball and sports. And rookie can vary from just their first year, or it can be a couple years. Particularly now, we have some people who decided to buy season tickets late in 2019. Maybe they attended 1 or 2 games then. They didn't attend any games in 2020, and they've only been able to do a couple this year based on capacity. So, the definition of rookie can vary, but there's special attention paid to these folks because they're less likely to renew. Once they've been around for 3, 4, 5 years or beyond, they stayed for a reason, and they're more likely to stay on. So, what can we do specifically, for these account holders to make them feel welcome, to help them learn, especially, in this time when they haven't been able to attend as many games. So there's a lot of, neat things that teams do, in order to, have them be comfortable with their service rep, to learn how to, manage their tickets. And, again, events-based stuff, getting them down to the ballpark or other areas, to really give them the tender love and care, to make them, feel wanted and have a good experience and want to come back. And then, just to kind of sum all of it up, and again, I'm sure everybody, listening here is doing, different versions of touch point campaigns. I think the first 2 slides on onboarding were different versions of that, but just kind of trying to give the full scope of the things that our teams try and do to get in front of these customers as many times as possible, make it as personal as possible, gather as much information. And whether it's tangible items, there's a Mariners example here of kind of the welcome packet they get and all the different, little pieces that they get, to, the individual visits in person, whether it's at games or just meeting up, and then, behind the scenes stuff and just, speaking, et cetera. So, I think it's all about engaging with our customers, and onboarding them is the first step in that, and really the most important. But there's plenty of people that aren't rookie accounts that we need to engage with too. So I can talk a little bit about what the engagement looks like in general with all ticket holders here. So going back to, again, I've said it many times now, just the events-based stuff, that's our greatest asset. People love coming to the games, and that's where we have the best opportunity to engage with them. So you can see here an example of the Brewers. They have a season seat holder headquarters. So the people that are spending the most money with the club, they have a special place on the concourse at the game. It's only for them. They have all kinds of stuff that they will host there in normal times. They'll have players there. You can pick up bobbleheads and other items, and you can always find somebody there that can answer your questions and help troubleshoot anything you might have. And then there's some Marlins examples of just again, events-based stuff before a game. Come a little earlier. There might be a player or a coach or somebody, alumni speaking, just giving them an opportunity to get an extra level of engagement. Food and beverage or reward, tickets, parking, whatever it might be. And then the last thing from a game day perspective, something the Braves do, which I think is really neat, is they have a VIP or concierge service. So we have just like you all, there's businesses that are customers, and then there's the regular consumers, the B2C folks. But so anybody could fall into this, but thinking mostly about businesses, a lot of times you're buying tickets for client entertainment. So you're giving your client tickets to the game, and you're hoping they have a good time, but there's so many things that could happen when they're there that you can't control. And so the Braves have a concierge service they set up so that they can let their season ticket service rep know, maybe we can make sure the mascot can visit, maybe we can make sure they get some kind of promo pack, a gift bag to get to them. Maybe we can make sure just somebody checks in on them and makes sure they're having a good time. Anything that we can do to make sure that our clients, and ultimately our clients, are getting value out of their investment, and the game day is the best place to do that. But also there's plenty of opportunities for non-game day, and something we've had to lean into the past year. So those non-game day events can also be at the ballpark, because people love to come down there and they get to do behind the scenes type stuff. But also, there's an example, I think this is the Twins, like they do a boat cruise. There's all kinds of trips, and folks spend a lot of money to come to baseball games, and the teams want to make sure that they get value out of that, and make it a 365 day a year product. It's not just, hey, come to the games when they're on. It's let's engage with you the entire off season, the entire season. And going to baseball games is just part of the package. It's not everything that you get to it. And so just like everybody else, we had to pivot a little bit in the past year plus to do some of this engagement virtually, and the teams got really creative there. So you can see some examples of conference calls, town halls, Instagram live sessions with players, managers, general managers, and then even something like direct outbound call campaigns. The Tampa Bay Rays had their radio announcers, and those are voices that people are probably familiar with, because if they're listening and engaging in games, make calls just to check on people proactively and say, hey, hope you and your family are doing well. We're thinking about you. If you have any questions, let us know. And we're looking forward to getting you back at the ballpark. So anything might resonate differently with a different customer. So trying to do that in as many ways as possible. And kind of to that point, there's a Twins example here of something they did. It's, there's folks that are the hardcore fans that want to hear from the general manager, the manager, even the players. But there's a lot of aspects of baseball teams. There's trainers, there's groundkeepers, there's dietitians, there's photographers, all that stuff. And the Twins had a kind of a learn from home from the experts thing. So they did some physical fitness stuff. I had a coworker the other day sending me a picture, text message of his yard. He was very proud after he had mowed his lawn. Some people are into that. Wouldn't you like to know, if you're into that, how to put the cool lines that they have at the baseball stadiums, in your lawn. So again, just how many ways can we engage with our customers that might resonate with them, and it might be different for everybody. So that's a cool idea from the Twins, and other teams have done something similar. It doesn't just have to be the baseball personnel that you can engage with. There's so many aspects of the team. So we acquire the customers. we onboarded them, we're engaging with them, and especially, during COVID, it's even harder. So some cool examples here. I think anybody who watched a sporting event in 2020 is familiar with some kind of fan cutouts. A bunch of teams did them. Everyone likes seeing themselves on TV. So that was a fun thing that we hopefully don't have to do again. But it was successful for a bunch of teams. And then, just again, positive, proactive, personalized outreach with a couple cool bells and whistles. The example all the way to the right here is from the Pirates. Last year, obviously, there were no fans in attendance in baseball games. The games are going on. There's still foul balls. The ball's hit out of play. And if a ball landed in the seat that you would have been sitting on as a season ticket holder, the Pirates sent a little note in the ball itself saying, we wish you were here, but, you would have had this foul ball if you were here, so we wanted to send it to you. So just all those little touch points. Anything we've been doing to, again, going back to leveraging our live events and making sure our customers are feeling the love. And then finally, this is kind of an evolution that isn't new, certainly, in the world, but for baseball a little bit too. We've always had fan clubs, and I think, maybe even in European soccer, there's been, some of these kind of membership at home products too, based on their international fan bases. But we have that in baseball too. And so there's a Dodgers example here, and a bunch of teams are leaning into this. And it's something that will stay, we think, even when we return to 100% capacity and normalcy. There's fans that can't necessarily attend games, but they do want content from the team that's special to them, and the equivalent of being a season ticket holder but without having season tickets. So what does that look like? And so the Dodgers example here, there's gift boxes, there's content that's exclusive to the Dodgers and home members, and all kinds of other interactions. And again, it's something that potentially, down the road, even when we do, it came out of not being able to have fans in the ballpark, but at the same time, it's something that will likely stay. So we're talking a little bit about engagement here. Hopefully, we've given people a good experience, and hopefully they'll want to come back. But just like everybody, we have to do some efforts to retain them. And I think the first thing is kind of a no-brainer that everybody's been doing for a long time. It's a little bit slower in the baseball and the sports world. Most teams are on auto renewal now. And I think everybody will be shortly, but just helping us identify our at-risk accounts earlier in the process, and giving them, an opportunity to eliminate a lot of the logistical work and making things smoother. So again, I know in a lot of the industries that we have, on the Zoom here, have been doing this for quite some time. So it's not necessarily new. And we talked a little bit before about customer journeys, and that was more from a sales perspective. I have an example of a renewal one here from the Nationals. So we're required to have that opt-out window, whether it's 2 weeks, a month, whatever it might be, for someone at the end of their membership. And so you can see the dues notification email, and then based on their action, if they don't take any action, that's simple. They're just going to get the welcome back and renew. And if they want to stay on but change what their plan is, have more games, less games, a different location, they have a whole different path. And then, if they decide that they don't want to come anymore, kind of what that process looks like, just making sure that we give them a lot of opportunities to stay on board and voice their concerns, and make sure they're fit in the right spot. And then, again, not unlike a lot of other industries, but just, kind of the different renewal touch points. Just hold a snapshot here. This one's actually from the Toronto Blue Jays. Just, based on someone's likelihood to renew, the different metrics that we use to determine that, the different touch points that we're going to give everybody, to whether it's email, phone, in-person type visits, throughout the kind of renewal cycle, to make sure that the most at-risk accounts do get the extra attention and their concerns heard, and hopefully keep them renewed. And then last thing that I'll share, and I know there's some questions and looking forward to answering them, just, the other personalization that we can give people, versus just the regular, everyone emails, calls, et cetera. But, the e-brochure products that we use, countdown clocks and interactive, and you can see your invoice and all that stuff. those cost money. Their third parties are used to do them, but there is a return on investment that teams find. And then, when teams don't have the budget to do that, there's other, unique ways that we can leverage all the data we have to still, give the customer that personalized experience. So there's an example at the bottom here. It's, hey, you should renew because you've been to 391 games with us. You've seen 215 wins. You've saved almost $50,000 in all your time as a season ticket holder. So, all the different ways that we can combine the data and information we have on customers in order to paint them a picture of, why they've had a good experience. So I'm from New York. I think I probably talked too quickly there. I went through a lot of stuff, but hopefully that gives you an idea of kind of our process at a high level with a bunch of examples from teams. So I'm happy to answer any questions that there might be on here.
Great. Thank you, John. We love your pace. So it worked for us and we appreciate it. Yeah, you probably did see the chat window come up quite a bit. There's a lot of questions and we'll get to them here in just a second. So we really appreciate you sharing with us today. And I'm going to do my best to look through those and pitch you questions. And now that I think about it, I should probably stop making baseball reference puns because they're probably only funny to me. But nonetheless.
That's another casualty, Nikki, of the virtual conference. I was on at the beginning when you said it was going to be a home run at the end. I smiled, but you didn't get to see everybody else do it. But they're landing over here at least.
Okay, that makes me feel so much better. Yeah, because it's only funny and I'm only laughing to myself. So that's helpful to know. Okay, great. Well, one of the things that I think was really present in your conversation was that there really are so many more similarities to the publishing world and the world that we live in to what you expressed with Major League Baseball. And I just got to say, one of the things that stood out to me is how you guys focused on keeping that relationship and that engagement going in what would be just crazy, unprecedented times, right? So the idea that you would take the sports psychologists that you have access to and turn that into content so people could help with mental, health and that sort of thing, or even the groundskeepers on giving tips on how to keep their lawn. Or the other one that I think I took note of was around how to be physically fit at home and utilize the trainers to help give that kind of content. That starts to embark in a content world. And so, just curious where some of those ideas came from, if they came mainly from the league or individual teams, and then you guys picked those up and shared them along the way. That's just interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a combination of all those. Just like everybody else, for a couple weeks or a couple months last year, we were trying to figure out what to do, right? And there was, a lot of, negative stuff out there, right? Just in the world. And then, we had to cancel some games and refund some tickets. And there's all those conversations. So how can we shift the narrative to be more positive and still use the assets that we have to have proactive outreach? I think I said a couple of times, which is important. I think the teams that did that had a lot better relationships with their customers versus just, taking inbound calls and saying, we'll get back to you, going out and just leaning into it. But I mean, every market is different. Every team is different. They all have different good ideas. And, when we agree that they're good ideas or when the team reports back that they've had success, we try and amplify it across the board. And not everything's going to work in every market necessarily. I think most of the stuff that I tried to share are things that hopefully would work, in every market, but that's not always the case. So it's just, knowing the individual teams and how they're set up, how they're structured, how they, operate, and, what kind of resources they have to be able to pull something off, and sharing with them, what we see. Well, it doesn't just need to be baseball, right? It's from anywhere. I mean, there were a lot of the fan cutouts. I think it was, German soccer teams that started it, maybe. I mean, the stuff comes from all over the world. A good idea is a good idea. And if we can find a way to implement and execute it, that's what we're always looking to do.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot that people can take away from this. And, regardless if the tactic doesn't translate exactly, sometimes the medium can be. And I think one of the questions that came in that would be helpful is whether or not you guys saw success in any particular type of platform. So when you were trying to increase engagement and keep those relationships, did text messaging, for example, work better than, say, webinars, or did email sort of increase in terms of open rates? If those mediums are consistent, right, between the publishing industry, Major League Baseball, what have you, we'd just be curious to see if any of those rose to the top in terms of engagement for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to not answer the question directly, but I think it depends on what content you're looking to get across. Like if we're talking in the ticket holder world, that might be different from just people who are interested in watching the games, right? I mean, video has certainly been king. From a baseball perspective, people want to watch the highlights and engage that way, and that certainly worked as I noted, even some of the personalized examples, but it's about meeting the customers where where they are and where they want to be. Some people, especially from a ticket perspective, making sure they're comfortable with what their path looks forward to attend games. They want to do it on the phone. Some of them are more comfortable doing it via text message. So generally, I would say, to answer the question, video is always better, but different teams have different abilities to make personalized videos or just really kind of cool behind the scenes content. So it's whatever resources the teams have available. And just going back to being proactive and being positive, that's where the most success was. Whatever it was, people liked hearing from the teams because that's something good, that they can recall and look back on. And so, rekindling those memories with, showing, highlights of old games, because we couldn't have existing ones, right? Like, from past years when the team was successful, anything like that really seemed to resonate pretty well.
Yeah. No, it definitely makes sense. And, one of the things that we've experienced is a lot of us have really increased the number of emails. And so when you were showing the consumer journey and it was sort of the decision point, did they open the email? If yes, then this, if no, then this. One of the questions that I have, and just thinking about, even our own work, at Insight, at the company that I work for, is with that increase in email, have you guys seen where sort of the threshold is, or have you set any kind of boundary which says, okay, this is too many. We've hit them. We've bombarded them. That's when sort of we opt out, because you went through, the majority of a season, right, where you didn't have anyone coming into the stadium, and that may have been one of the, few channels that you could use.
It's too many. I think everyone would agree that, based on, I mean, who doesn't have a, secondary email account that they sign up for stuff with, right? So it is too many, but it's cheaper and it is still effective, right? I mean, maybe the open rates aren't as high and maybe the engagement isn't as high as it once was. But people still relate to it. And that goes more back to the personalization and the journeys based on their activities. If someone is not responding to the email, and I don't mean responding, literally responding, but clicking on it, opening on it, then let's let it go. They're not going to engage with us that way. For the people that are, then maybe those are the ones that we can lean into it a little bit more, and engage with them in different ways. It's not the same email over and over again. Let's be creative, based on the activities that they've taken. I mean, we run campaigns when someone goes through a purchase flow and abandons, and teams are creative, like, hey, we caught you looking, like, I know you like the baseball pun, so so stuff like that. When people are engaging, it's when they are reading the emails, open the emails, clicking the emails, or whatever form we're communicating with them, then let's continue with that more because they've engaged. And when they aren't, let's not push it too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'm a fan of the baseball puns or if I'm just really good at them, John.
Both.
Both, right. So we are very excited that baseball season is back in our household, and I live in Dallas, so we have a brand new stadium to go visit here in the Dallas area. So that's something that's getting people back in addition to just the season. And I think that our audience would like to know how you're seeing ticket sales going so far. I mean, everyone was wondering what would happen in a post-COVID world. Would people be rushing out to take advantage of some of the things that we've missed so much, or are they still hesitant? And we just love your insight on how it's going so far.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is market by market. Generally, the demand for the tickets we have available is strong. I think capacities are limited, depending on the market. So, down there in Dallas, the Rangers, they are at 100% capacity, and they do have a new ballpark. So that certainly helps to have a new ballpark. But in some other places in the country, we have, 20, 25%, 30% capacity. So there certainly is demand there. And hopefully as the summer goes on here, our attendance is always better in the summer. Things are all trending in the right direction, right? And we've gotten a few announcements in the past couple of days about teams being able to increase their capacity. I think, hopefully the demand will continue to increase, as capacity increases. And, but it's really a little bit market specific, and it's also we talked about season ticket holders, season ticket members, throughout the presentation here. those are the folks that are getting to come to the games a lot more than the individual ticket holders, just because there's only a certain amount of tickets available and they're the best customers. You want to give them the first crack, the first opportunity. So hopefully as the summer goes, we'll just be opening up to more people to have access to, to more games, better seats, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up the Texas Rangers. And so this is actually a question that came in. Our Texas Rangers, let's just say we're not leading the pack in terms of win-loss record. It's early, you never know. But one of the questions that came in is, when you have seasons for different teams that have different win-loss records, and maybe someone's on a path, of success and others not so much, do you different playbooks based on those seasons and how the records are going and the team overall in terms of your overall engagement and really just keeping those fans?
Definitely. There's two things that I've learned in working at MLB and baseball for 12 years to be incontrovertible facts. One is I can never get all 30 teams to agree on something, the same thing. It's hard to get everybody to agree. And two, the best practice that you can share to help increase ticket sales is to have a good team and win the World Series. But only one team can win the World Series every year. And there's 30 teams. Some of them are going to win the games and some of them are going to lose them. So the teams that, don't have as good a season, it's certainly more of a challenge than the teams that have a winning season. I think if teams are doing well, they'll leverage that success. Say, hey, like if you come now, you can get an advantage to, to be here for the postseason when we play, in the championship series or World Series, something like that. The teams that aren't doing well don't have that leverage. But it goes back to creating that kind of 365 a day a year product. What are the other things that we can do and offer instead when that isn't the case anymore? You can still come to the games and you can still have a good time. The good news is even our worst teams still win, 60 plus games a year. So there's still an opportunity to have a good experience and experience, a winning game, even if the team isn't having a great season. But doing all the other events and all the other, bells and whistles that we have at our disposal to offer, teams will certainly lean into them a little bit more in a situation where they don't, have as much success on the field.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And, one question just to sort of wrap us up today, and we appreciate you taking the time to walk through this. We have heard throughout the day just how important really apps are for engagement. So people have seen, tremendous success with getting people who are taking the time to download the app and getting notifications and alerts, et cetera, to keep them as engaged sort of subscribers. Obviously, you run a very different business with the Major League Baseball, but I noticed from going to the game, we have made it out to a game so far this year, that we use the app to access our, paperless tickets now, as well as to be able to have the code, scanned for parking. Have you guys looked at the app as an opportunity for engagement in doing things other than just functional for, say, getting into the game like I just described? And I'm wondering if that's, consistent among what we've heard today.
Yeah, 100%. And, I'm probably not the best person to speak on all this. That, at MLB, there's plenty of people who spend more time, working on it than me, but we have a bunch of different apps. We have the MLB app, which is really for more of engaging with, the game itself. You can access MLB TV and watch games in there, see all the stats, highlights, all that good stuff. You use the Ballpark app, which is, it's essentially the concierge for you when you go to a game, anything and everything that you might need: parking, merchandise, concessions, your tickets, all that. And then all the other fun stuff that teams do in Ballpark with games and such. And then, we have other apps like Rally app, which is another like engagement, app if you're not at the ballpark, in that space. So, we don't have one app, one destination for everybody, but certainly the engagement on them is up this year over past years. And we'll continue to lean into it to, get customers from one app to the other based on what they're looking for, and, make sure, we can leverage any opportunities they might be interested in.
Okay, great to hear it. Thanks again, John, for joining us today, and really appreciate you taking us through this.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Take care.